It's time for another huge debate on Full-Time Devils. Today's topic is all about the boss, Jose Mourinho. Is this his make or break season? It's going to be a good one today. I have a feeling about it. Josh is here, Statman Dave's here, and Adam McKola is here as well. Let's get stuck straight in then and talk about the one aspect of Jose Mourinho being Man United manager that a lot of his haters always bring up when talking about his negatives, and that is the style of play. It is the big question. Can Mourinho evolve our play and let the horses run free, as he said in the past? I mean, you've got the likes of Pogba, Lukaku, Lingard, Sanchez, Martial, Rashford, a lot of incredible attacking talent in there. Can we utilise it properly this season? If so, how? McKola, talk to me.
I think it's hard to judge in pre-season because of the simple fact that we haven't got an awful lot of our squad there to kind of showcase what we can do. The only one thing I would say is from the first couple of games, you haven't really seen any idea of anything changing. But again, without having a full squad, it's difficult for Jose Mourinho to do that. So I kind of understand why things are going the way they are in pre-season. The only time we can judge it is when we get a full squad of players back together. And even then, I don't think Jose Mourinho will change much from the Jose Mourinho that we know and either love or hate. So, in a word, no. But I do think it can improve just by the simple fact of if we get an extra defender in the summer transfer window. That is an if. I hope it wasn't at the moment, but it is still an if. And also how well Fred settles into the side. Also, Andreas Pereira's coming. So if Fred can become the central midfielder that we want him to be, and that link-up player between Matic and between Pogba, and we can get a defender to sort out the defensive issues, then I think as a result, we will just naturally look better on the pitch. And going forward, we will perform better because the attacking players will have a better foundation behind him. I don't think Jose will change too much in that aspect. I just think or hope that we'll have better players in certain positions. And also, you've got to think, Romelu Lukaku scored 27 goals, which was his highest tally ever in his career. Hats off to him. But we know he can do more. Anthony Martial, Marcus Rashford, Jesse Lingard, Juan Mata, Alexis Sanchez, definitely. All of these players can all add an extra 10, 20, 30% to their game. So if we can do that, we'll improve as a team. But the answer to your question is I don't think Jose Mourinho will change much tactically. And he probably doesn't have to, because if you look at our results against the bigger sides last season, they were pretty good. It was against the defense, the lesser sides that we struggled against.
Joshi, have you seen anything to suggest that maybe a slight change in style could be on the horizon for next season?
I mean, like Adam said, it's only been 2 matches, so I'm not going to say I can see something in those 2 matches that might suggest a change. But I think there are positives to take. And, you know, Jose's style, that's his style, but it doesn't mean we can't score a lot of goals and also, you know, defend solidly. You know, last season, the defense, second best defense in the league. And yes, we do need to improve to allow the team that foundation going forward. But I think individually there is a lot of improvement to be had. You know, I think Alexis, he's now had a full summer off, rested, looks sharp, not just his haircut, but in his 60 minutes in his first appearance in pre-season, he looked sharp and to me seemed a bit more mobile, seemed a bit more sort of alert to what was around him than when we've seen him in the Premier League last season. So that's a big positive for us. There are lots of question marks around the squad coming in, players coming in, players going out. I think an area where we do lack someone who's really taken that place down or set that place down is on the right hand side. You know, Juan Mata has played there, Lingard has played there, Martial, Rashford in various matches have played there, and I think that's an area of concern. And if Mourinho can sort of sort out how his system works with that right hand side, then I think you'll see a lot more from the attacking unit. Can Jose Mourinho evolve his style? He's not going to do it in one summer, but I think that the squad and the team have improved steadily under his management. It's just that we're now benchmarked against one of the best sides we've seen in the Premier League in terms of style, in terms of goal scoring with Man City, and it's going to take a lot to catch them. And that's where I think people are losing their heads a bit. And what doesn't help is Mourinho's persona in the media, and for whatever reason he has been quite negative. I'm not saying the squad is in disarray and the squad are miserable. In fact, far from it. The videos suggest and reports suggest that they're really having a great time out there. But this outward persona from Mourinho doesn't help his cause, and then that sort of lends to the perception that there's a lot of negative stuff around the club. But I think when you look at the facts, there has been progression. There has been evolution. You know, he's bringing players in, and he's almost, after this summer, you could potentially field a team of Mourinho signings, which shows that the squad is now evolving into his squad. So we hopefully will see an improvement, but that also means there's going to be very few excuses from him if we do get a couple more signings in. So I'm not expecting a revolution, but I do expect an improvement because of the players in that attacking area and the fact that they've got more to come.
Since you brought it up, also going to mention Alexis Sanchez and me went to the same hairdressers last week, so there's also that. Statman Dave, let's come to you. Some of those players that I listed a little bit earlier on, I want to ask you if you can see their roles in the United team changing quite drastically this season. So the likes of Pogba, Lukaku, Lingard, Sanchez, Martial, Rashford, particularly Pogba and Sanchez and Martial. Could you see those three players, their roles changing a lot as we go into the new season?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's two left wingers there, two guys that are playing for the same position. You know, nobody's going to unsettle Lukaku as our main number 9. It was fantastic last season. One of the things in terms of style that Adam and Joshi were talking about was we just got to get the ball more to Lukaku. We've got to go to his feet a lot quicker because he's very, very good on the turn. But also when we get into that final third, more balls to that back post. It was a weird thing that we saw at the start of the season that worked really well, those sort of hanged crosses up there, and we just stopped doing it for Lukaku. So it's kind of like we need Lukaku to be the kind of fulcrum of the attack. Hit Lukaku, play off him. But in terms of Sanchez, and Martial, it is going to be, vying for the same position. Whether Martial wants to evolve himself and play on the right-hand side, as I've said before, go out and learn that position. Go out and learn of how you play on the right-hand side as a right footer. On the right side, Martial sometimes comes in. He doesn't have to do that when he's naturally could hit the byline and come back across. But in terms of like the players that will emerge, Paul Pogba's going to be the guy. France were fantastic with Paul Pogba. Mourinho's comments on his consistency in the World Cup versus the Premier League were very interesting. With the World Cup, it builds up, the anticipation goes. Whereas he was talking about the Premier League where, 1 week we're going to be playing a Chelsea, then we're going to be playing like a West Brom, up and down. Pogba needs to improve his consistency, and something that I mentioned, Fred could be the guy to unlock that. We all spoke about Matic unlocking Pogba going forward. But there was that other element that Juve that he had was people finding him in between the lines. Bonucci, Marchisio, Pirlo when he was there, threading those balls through. And sometimes United are a little bit sideways out of the back because of the tension of Louis van Gaal. Again, a stylistic thing that hasn't changed yet. That with someone like Kieran McKenna coming into the setup for coaches and Michael Carrick, that very much are a little bit more forward-thinking than Louis van Gaal. That stylistically needs to change, and that will come from the backroom staff. And I hope that Mourinho does give the likes of Kieran McKenna, a chance to put his style of football across in an attacking sense, because his under 9, under 18 side were very, very good going forward. You can see the interplay, the quick changes of moves, likes of Angel Gomez, Chong, all combining quick little passing, and that's what United need to do, as Matt mentioned, to beat those teams a bit deep. I think it's about width from fullbacks, about switching the play. It's all the classic things that Man United used to do under Ferguson. Open up the Old Trafford pitch. It's so big, which consequently will open up more space inside for Pogba, for Fred in those advanced areas. So I think there's some slight tactical switches, but I don't think it's a thing where you're like, player A is going to sort this out, or player B, if we buy him from Bayern Munich, or player C from Real Madrid, is going to fix this. This is a collective thing where the players, the coaching staff, Mourinho, everyone is involved in upgrading the Man United style of play, and I don't think signings are going to change it. It's all about work on the training ground. And again, this sort of, what we mentioned before, the positivity in the camp from the players. We see the initiation song, we see all those types of players. We see Chong playing, Gomez playing. It feels a lot nicer this season, and I hope that on the pitch, that's reflected in the attacking sense.
Would you say that it's been a disappointing transfer window for Man United, Dave?
I think it's been it's not been as effective as you'd want. I think the big thing, the Premier League have got a lot to answer for. The World Cup, and then they're cutting the window off before the first game of the season. It literally gives a club about 25 days to do all their business post-World Cup. You have to take away the fact that some World Cup performances are a lot better than they are at their club level. It's just a mess, and I think the Premier League got something to answer for there, because what we're talking at the moment, like around 15 days left until it closes, you're thinking that would have lasted another 20 days. So we're nowhere near the end of the window. There's a lot of more room that maybe United, Chelsea, Arsenal could move around with. Clubs are going to be paying less for signings. You know, we've seen some crazy deals over this window, and I think that's the thing that may be putting off United as a club, is that when they go to be like, okay, how much for Richarlison? 50 million? No, you're okay. And I think that's an interesting side there, but I think there's still holes, as you mentioned, that could be filled in the United squad. The left back is the biggest one for me right now. I think in central midfield, with Pereira coming back, Fosu Mensah in there, I think that could be okay. But of course, fullbacks is how United could evolve their play. How City went from being really poor in the Premier League under Guardiola to dominating the league was getting some high quality fullbacks to get into those high areas and creating a way. And I think Delot is a player that I'm really excited about. I've already mentioned that on Full Time Devils. Looks like he's going to be an absolute world beater. So arguably it's just a left back the United need. But you go into Juve, they've just bought Ronaldo. Alexandro is going to cost you so much money. You may as well even go to Real Madrid and be like, how much you want for Marcelo? We'll just take Marcelo. Whatever you want, we'll take Marcelo. Obviously, he's lost his best pal in Ronaldo's left for Juve. He is the best left back in the world. So if we're going to go out there and be like, let's just sign the best left back, I'd rather spend money on him than buying someone that maybe like a Sandro, that maybe that tier below Marcelo, and you're still going to be paying so much money for him. And I think that's the problem, that the Premier League have broken the market by shortening it so much and not allowing this sort of wiggle room for teams to negotiate over time. You've literally got no time to do anything, and some people are still on holiday.
Adam, what do you make of the transfer window? You were shaking your head. Talk to me.
Didn't the clubs vote for that?
This is the thing. Whether the clubs,
why is it the Premier League's fault if the clubs all voted for it?
But then it's the Premier League as a whole, all the clubs in the Premier League. I don't mean it's the Premier League as a body. Then everyone's made a pretty bad decision there and just inflated the market even more.
The thing for me, and this is why I don't think Manchester United's problems are solely Jose Mourinho's. I think he's part of the problem, but I don't think he's the whole of the problem. And that's why I think for those people, I know I get accused of being Jose, I'm quite clearly not. And I think those people that do want the manager out, I think they're out of their minds, because do they think we've got the board here in place to appoint the right manager after Jose Mourinho? I really don't think so. And the thing for me that has wound me up is that we've known about the World Cup for 4 years, however long, since Jose arrived. The Premier League transfer window thing got sorted last year, I believe, if I remember correctly. So we've known about that for a year. Jose Mourinho himself admitted that Fred was a signing that we've worked on since January. Yeah. We've known that we've got a left back issue. We've known that centre backs ain't good enough. And still, going into the last 2 weeks, anything can happen. That's why I'm skeptical of going in too hard on the transfer window. Because by the end of this week, we could have 2 players and we're like, oh, we're sorted, we're ready for the new season. But as it stands, it feels like we're unprepared for this. And we should have been prepared, because we've known about it. We've had ample time to prepare. And that's why I feel at the moment, Ed Woodward, the board, the club, I feel like Jose Mourinho, you can't fully judge the job he's doing, because it feels like he hasn't got the full support of the board. So, that's why I feel like he's starting to self-destruct at the moment.
Well, when you say you don't have the full support of the board, some of the money that he spent on some of the players in the past...
But Gaz, you look at that, and he wanted a fullback last year. He didn't get one. He wants a fullback this year. He hasn't got one. If you believe the rumours, we want a centre-half this year. He hasn't got one. We've still got Chris Smalling and that in the... you've got to think, to me, the board looked like Gareth Bale's available. Oh, let's go spend all that money on him because he'll make us a shitload of money back. But when the boss wants a player that will just do a footballing job, isn't as lucrative off the pitch, isn't going to sell as many shirts, they probably shy away from it a little bit. Well, hence why Sandro negotiations have probably hit the wall.
It's interesting, really, because what you have a go at the board for is what a lot of people have a go at Jose Mourinho for. They're saying, he's got the funds, why isn't he going out and spending it? And obviously you're saying there's more to it than that. Joshi, what do you have to say on the points that the two guys have made about the transfer window so far? Has it been a disappointment? Are we unprepared going into the new season?
Well, I think that that's two different questions. I think it has been a little bit disappointing because we know that there are areas that we want to fill in the squad, and we've talked about fullbacks on Full Time Devils before, and I don't know a lot about Dalot, but he's still a young guy. Valencia is going to start, and I think Dalot can play on the left as well. And if Dave sounds very excited, and if he does come on as a player, then great. But I still think on the left-hand side, there's a weakness. So you can say, look, there's a disappointment. Are we underprepared for the season? Of course we are. There's just been a World Cup. We're missing, I think, 7 players, and a lot of them are first 11 players. But then that will affect a lot of the sides at the top of the Premier League. So that's two different questions there. What I don't get, or something that I'll put out there, I'm not saying this is Jose Mourinho's fault, all Jose Mourinho's fault. And Adam makes some good points. Transfers don't happen overnight. There's planning, there's work to be done at a board level, and Mourinho has said that in the past. He gives, he's got a lot of input into the transfers, but he doesn't do the negotiating, he doesn't do all the financials and contracting. So you've got to have a combined blame there. But what I would pose to Jose Mourinho is, look, you spent £65 million on 2 centre-backs, for example, and they've never played together. I think they've only started one game, if at all, together. So you've got to have then a little bit of you've got to question that and sort of go, well, are we going to give him another £60 million to go and sign? In the papers they're talking about Harry Maguire. I really don't know why, but sign another centre back, and when you're not using what you have already spent, and that's a question that I would ask, and I'm sure the board would ask. And so it isn't just a case of it's all Jose's fault, or it's all the board's fault, or it's all Ed Woodward's fault. We know that this is a complex situation. And then there's a transfer window closing early. So a lot of good points been made here. But I would suggest that actually Mourinho, I think he needs to concentrate on what he has got at the moment, because he's not involved in the negotiations for these players, and exactly. If it doesn't happen, then fair enough, he can start calling them out, but he's still got a set of players in front of him. He has still spent a fair amount of money, and another thing people need to remember is Alexis Sanchez signed in January, and that was an unplanned signing, and actually we're probably going to see the best of him. Imagine if for a second, if we'd sign, our summer transfer window had been Fred, Alexis, and then the rest,
we'd still be saying we need defenders.
Yeah, it wouldn't be perfect, but it would feel a lot better. And because I don't think his signing in January was, it wasn't planned, so now he's come in. So I think there's something that I'm not saying like a new signing, but I'm just sort of in my head sort of thinking there's a lot he has to do, a lot he can do with what he already has. Yeah. Before starting to complain about the fact that he's not allowed to buy a third centre-back.
Well, the thing is as well, you've also got players there that maybe, well, obviously Fosu Mensah on loan last season, coming back this season. He could be like a new signing for us, playing right back or centre-half, wherever we want to put him. Luke Shaw, a player that a lot of us dismissed, said that he was pretty much gone. He looked completely out of weight in the summer. He's back, looking back in shape. Maybe he's going to have a great season, get back into the team. So these players that we've already got could be like new signings for next season. So we'll wait and see. Right, we'll be back in a sec talking about Jose Mourinho's longevity, because I was quite surprised when I realised just how little time he spent at certain clubs. We're back in a sec. Right, it is the Jose Mourinho make or break season debate on Full Time Devils. Let's get into this and talk about Jose's longevity. I was properly taken aback with just how little time he spent at some of these clubs. Porto, 2.5 seasons. Chelsea, 3 seasons. Inter, 2 seasons. Thought that was longer. Real Madrid, 3 seasons. Chelsea, again, 2.5 seasons. And at Man United, he has been here for 2 seasons so far. So given the above, should we be planning for Mourinho's last season this season? Joshi, talk to me.
Look, if you're looking at just that in isolation, then yes, obviously the pattern is there, but that doesn't mean that it's inevitable. I've always had this feeling that he's been searching for this club where his kind of like legacy club, where he can set down a long-term sort of legacy or dynasty or whatever you want to call it.
Glasses though, doesn't it? That, 'cause he's been at Real Madrid. I mean,
yeah, but Real Madrid aren't that kind of club. They go through their managers, a lot. They look. Zidane has look at the success he's had, and he's shipped off very quickly. Similarly with Guardiola at Barcelona, they are they are big clubs, but that's not the only way to do things in terms of long-term appointments. But I think that he's been searching for that, and I've always had this feeling. I'm not saying that this is what's going to happen. I'm just saying that this is probably his last chance at that. I can't think of many clubs where he would be able to do that. He could go into international management later on, and I think from that point of view, I would certainly not write him off being here again at the beginning of next season, and I would want him to be because he is building something. There has been improvement. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but there has been tangible improvement. It's not just, oh, I feel like it's better. There has been tangible improvement. There have been trophies in there. So I feel like if he is able to get some of these players that he wants, he's able to see the best out of the likes of Alexis, Lukaku, Pogba this season. We may not win the league because let's face it, City are a phenomenal side. But the point is, if he sees that improvement, he feels like he's energized and working with these players. And judging by the reports and the videos, the squad are very happy. I don't see why he can't be here for another season and more and beyond. And that's just, again, it goes against what he's done in the past, but it doesn't mean that he can't break that pattern.
Dave, the more I look at like this pattern, the more it sort of worries me that this is the season where it's all going to sort of implode for Jose, and all the things that we were warned before he came here. You know, he's going to leave the club in a worse position than they were when they first signed him, which I think is impossible. Now we've got the likes of Pogba and Lukaku at the team in the club.
So I think the interesting side about Mourinho and his past, obviously, it does build this picture that he stays at clubs for that long. But you think that the Chelsea sort of time kind of broke down with the board wanting something, Mourinho wanting something else with transfers. You think his spells at Porto and Inter Milan that were very, very short, were very successful. That at Inter Milan, for example, sold someone like Zlatan Ibrahimovic, like he was fully backed by the board and went on to win the Champions League. The two spells at Real Madrid ended with Real Madrid not backing him. The season he won the sort of La Liga when Guardiola was at his peak. He won the Liga. Real Madrid scored 121 goals. He was backed fully by the board that summer. And I think this is the interesting side of Mourinho that we need to look into a little bit of further detail. If you're going to bring Mourinho to your club, you've got to put him on this sort of like almost like stature in a way where he gets to make sort of more decisions than you'd like him to make. It's like that Ferguson thing. Ferguson controlled pretty much everything going along in the club, and it seems like Chelsea had that sporting director in his second stint there. They fell out. They signed like the likes of Cuadrado. He didn't want Cuadrado. Blah 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 blah. He leaves. Same with Real Madrid. If that happens at Manchester United, I kind of expect Mourinho to leave. But as Joshi has mentioned, it does feel like Mourinho wants a legacy somewhere down the line, and Man United could be the perfect place for him. Again, yes, I think Mourinho needs to move his backroom staff around. He's done that, similar like what Ferguson did to refresh the side, change the philosophy slightly internally. And that's something that's happening at United. And that's why it's more interesting. It's a more interesting case study because there is this internal change with Mourinho, with his coaching staff. The transfers is the only question mark that maybe if he doesn't get his own way, then he's pretty much gone. And that's kind of the interesting side about it. It is this sort of, this manager that's won absolutely everything at club level, been so dominant in so many different positions and leagues. What's going to happen here? It's fascinating. It will be a fascinating case study to see whether Mourinho is just this short-term solution.
Dave, I'm going to be completely honest. I've not listened to a word you've just said because look at that good boy on the middle screen. Wow. What's his name, Joshi? Or her?
His name is Max Newton.
I love a good dog with a surname. It's pretty amazing when you actually come to think about Jose that if he was to stay at Manchester United beyond this next season, it would officially be his longest job ever. Could you actually see that happening, Adam? In what possibility would Jose stay at United going forward?
I can see Jose still being here unless there's a major fallout with the board, which is also as possible as Jose not being here next season. Because you mentioned, like, should we be planning for Jose Mourinho to leave? And the word planning, it doesn't strike me as something that this club do. In a footballing sense.
I don't know what gave you that impression.
In a financial sense, in terms of bringing in money, they are very, very good. But in a footballing sense, it doesn't feel like they have any planning about them. It doesn't look like there's a 5-year plan. It doesn't look like there's a picture for where we want to be soon. And for that reason, I think if Jose Mourinho was to finish outside the top 4, he's a gunner.
Yeah.
If Jose Mourinho finishes in the top 4, has an awful season, we don't challenge for the league again, It'll be a purely financial decision, and
that's right, though, isn't it? Do you not think that's right?
No.
You'd keep Jose if he didn't finish in the top 4 this season.
Obviously, nothing's happened yet, so it's hard to say, I would sack him if we didn't do this or whatever. But if Jose Mourinho is properly backed in this window, which is still a big question mark, and we do not challenge adequately for the league and don't win any trophies, can you say that this Jose Mourinho 3-year thing has been a success? You can't, because Jose Mourinho, everywhere he's been, he challenges for the league. And you've got to say, with the players that we have here, you have more than enough to do that. More than enough to do that. There's question marks over our defence, but going forward, at least, in the midfield now, it was his decision to keep Fellaini. That's why it's important that the board back him, though. Because if he's not making his own decision in terms of team, then how can you criticize him for not doing his job when he hasn't got the tools that he wants?
Yeah.
So it's real messy at the moment. And that's probably why, like, you see Jose reflect this negativity in the press. Now, I would like to feel a bit of positivity from him, a little bit of that. But he probably feels like there's no reason for him to do that because of what's going on behind the scenes. So it's a real weird one. Like, do we really think Jose wants to be approaching this season in a negative attitude? Probably not. But he is. So you got to ask why.
It's when he's most comfortable, to be
I
honest.
want Jose to be positive. Like, I don't think he should be digging out Paul Pogba in the public. Like, bro, why are you getting so offended every time someone says, Pogba won the World Cup, he had a good World Cup? He seems to take it personally, like it's a slight on him. Like, why can't he just say, Pogba, you had a great World Cup. Let's hope we can do well this season. And then whatever constructive criticism you have, save it for behind closed doors. Because as a football fan, from going from this World Cup, which was like a great festival of football, to watching Jose in press conferences and all that, like, I find it crazy to think that I enjoyed international football more this year. And I feel Jose is just a reflection of what's going on behind him, but also, like, Jose's team is a reflection of him.
Wow.
It's a real mad conundrum.
Right then, guys, before we wrap up today, quick 30-second rounds for you to round up your opinions, sort of. I'm just dead quick question. Jose Mourinho, is this his make or break season? We'll start with Adam. Adam, 30 seconds, go.
It may be his make or break season. Like I said, it'll be a purely financial decision. If he gets the correct backing in the summer and he doesn't deliver a title challenge or a top 4 finish, I think he'll be gone. And then it'll be a make or break season. But as long as he finishes in that top 4, I don't think we have the board that are actually making the right footballing decisions or have that planning in them. So I don't think he'd be gone. So maybe.
Right, you've done it with 5 seconds to spare. We've got a maybe, not exactly decisive. Joshi, you've got 30 seconds. Is this Jose Mourinho's make or break season at Man United? Talk to me.
Every season at Man United is make or break for the manager at the moment, just because of the sort of what's happened since Ferguson has retired. Adam mentioned there doesn't seem to be any planning, so anything can happen in the season, and then suddenly we're looking at a manager being sacked, or he could go on and do something that satisfies the board and he cracks on. So every season is make or break. And for Mourinho, this is because 3 years was his initial contract. 3 years was kind of his thing. So done. Yes, it is a make or break season.
I like that answer. Every season's a make or break season for a Man United manager. It's a good answer, that. Right, Statman Dave, 30 seconds. If this Jose Mourinho's make or break season, go.
I think it is. I think this is one of the things with Mourinho, that he has this potential short-termism at certain clubs, that if he falls out with certain people within the club, with the transfers don't go his own way, then that's kind of it for him. So it is kind of make or break. But I'm going to go more with a make than a break. I think United still have enough time in the transfer window to rectify maybe the miss going so far. I think the signings so far have been fantastic. Fred looks like a great player. Same with Dalot. They're two players that I would have enjoyed watching and researching, and players that are almost unknown. So it's just about signing what Mourinho needs.
We're done. You know what, Dave? I kind of disagree that we've made enough signings so far. So
I didn't say we made enough signings so far. I said we've made some good signings so far.
Okay.
Let's not change what I said, bro.
Mate, yeah. To be fair, I'm not going to let you win anyway because I've realised you're one of them scruffy sods who keeps festival wristbands on. You absolute state. Sort it out, Dave. It's disgusting.
Well, I literally was at the festival like 2 days ago.
Even so, get it cut off, mate. That's horrible.
Just don't be
He
jealous,
wants
guys.
everyone to know he's been out this weekend, Gaz.
Exactly. I wasn't collecting
What's the
stats,
point?
guys.
What's the point in going out if no one knows about it? And yeah, I'm totally going to give Joshi the win just because of the dog. That's purely why. Right, we'll put it to the audience then. Guys, get in the comments below and also vote on this video. Who was the winner of today's debate? I'm looking forward to seeing all your opinions. Right, we'll catch you next time on Full Time Devils, guys. And thank you very much for subscribing as well. 450k. Big stuff. See you soon. Laters.